The groom took the stupid cake thing to an extreme. The bride had given him his bite, and mushed a little on his chin or nose. He then took a piece and mashed it into her face so hard that I was expecting her to end up with a bloody nose. Cake and frosting got up her nose, in her eyes, down the front of her dress, etc. The bride had to go get cleaned up, had her makeup redone, and was ugly, crying within an hour of saying, "I do." He didn't give a fuck. Had a buddy, this was almost 30 years ago, BTW, whose girlfriend told him that if he mashed the cake in her face, it was over. She told him at least 10 times in my presence. Day of the wedding, his buddies had gotten to him by making the whip noise and saying he had to show her who wore the pants. She fed him his piece, he mashed her face, she walked out and had the marriage annulled. I worked at a nice restaurant in NOLA. Bride is lovely, she is excited and very receptive to our suggestions on things in their budget. Groom is an insufferable know-it-all. He's bargain hunting. Crab cakes don't cost that much. What if I buy them and you serve them? On their big day I'm holding the door as they walk out the first time as husband and wife. Wife, we got married, I'm so happy. Husband, not really, we got to fill out paperwork and file it with the state. I've seen 3-week-old balloons less deflated than that poor woman. I hope she got out of there. Wedding photographer here, I can think of a few. Full-blown row during dinner, had another couple fist fight during a first dance. An infamous one for me was leaving a venue late one night, and as I'm walking to the train I can see the bride down an alley, on her knees with the best man. I was the wedding photographer for a reality TV show. End of the night, I'm having a few drinks with the film crew and the groom has come up to me and one of the producers and says, "I think I've made a big mistake." So we're trying to be reassuring and telling him it's natural to second guess such a big decision, to which he replies, "No, I mean I think I'm gay." I had them both on Facebook. The drama the next week was mesmerizing to watch unfold. I've got a ton of these stories. Edit, since you asked. Was working with a video guy who had the bride and groom on radio mics. Sat around waiting for the evening action to kick off and the video dude called me over and said, "Listen to this. Groom was talking to one of the bridesmaids about how they had to end their affair now he's married. Not a, how could you tell they wouldn't last, but shooting in an old church on the hottest day of the year. Watching the groom wait for the bride and he's swaying back and forth. Next thing he's fainted, fallen forward and slammed his mouth into a stone step, smashed his front teeth out. Blood everywhere. Had a bride and groom on a trampoline for photos. Groom's heading downward, bride's about to go up, he lands on her dress just as she goes up, and she pops out the top of the dress, boobs flailing around in the air. Shot a traveler wedding which erupted into a massive brawl. Watched a drunk usher knock over a wedding cake. Weddings are amazing. I've been doing this for about 12 years and seen some sights, but I still love shooting them even now. We noticed during the wedding the soon-to-be mother-in-law of the bride was insufferable. Every chance she could, she would make it about her and her son the groom. God forbid she let her new daughter-in-law have the spotlight. The mother-in-law had the photographer follow her around for most of the wedding. Most pictures have her in it. She was always near or around her son, but like always touching him too. It was weird. We joked that all 3 of them are going on honeymoon together. She gave an hour-long toast about how she is still the most important person in her son's life. I think she said something like, "You may be his wife, but he'll always be mommy's little boy." She always went into too much detail about how she breastfed and changed his diapers. She danced with her son more than the bride. And I'm talking not 60-40. Like 90% of the time it was mother and son dancing. At one point she was even bumping and grinding on him. So at no point did my girlfriend and I think the bride was going to put up with this crazy mill for more than a couple years. Sure enough, she got pregnant soon after the wedding. A couple months after the baby was born she filed for divorce. Who got pregnant? The bride, but the mother-in-law assumed it was hers as well. Former wedding DJ here. I've seen some shit. Top 3, number 3. huge brawl on the dance floor between the entire bridal party. Bride knocked her new hubby the fuck out. Number 2. Groom was going after the garter, blindfolded. Picked the wrong girl. Maid of honor should have known it wasn't his bride when the garter wasn't there. Had his head up her dress for way too long. Number 1. Bride disappears right after dinner for about an hour. After she returned, groom's father comes up and asks for the mic, proceeds to announce to the entire place that his son's new bride was just upstairs stopping her ex-boyfriend, and that the marriage is over. Crazy times, man. I was the maid of honor. They seemed like the perfect couple, together for nearly 10 years and had this big, expensive, beautiful wedding. Bride would have been happy with a small event but told me groom had a big family and had insisted. Alarm bells hit when I sat with her parents in the front row and realized the groom to bride ratio was so massively off. The groom had 3 best men, as well as ushers etc. His sister and 1 best man read something during the ceremony, and then all 3 said long speeches about him at dinner. It was all about him. The photographer was even his friend's mum, so she kept whisking away the boys for these hilarious lads shoots. The bride was ignored most of the day, and in the evening he got too drunk, spilled a drink over her wedding gown and danced with his friends. It felt more like a big birthday party than a joint event. I'd never seen that side to him, but I felt so sorry for my friend. It was like she was just there to be a prop to his plans and look good. 3 months after the wedding he began being emotionally abusive. A month after that he admitted he'd been having an affair for years, then left. If I hadn't seen the way he behaved at the wedding, I never would have guessed he had that in him. Edit, as so many people are being kind, I'll update you. My friend hasn't been able to trust or date again yet, and it's been 4 years. However, she has become an amazingly brave woman, who's traveled to some amazing places alone and is now retraining to change careers. I think she learned never to be a backseat passenger in a relationship again. Honestly, the way she handled the whole thing, with such grace and determination, makes me so proud to be her friend. She basically told him when he left that he would never see her, or hear from her, or about her again. She dropped all friends that had a connection with him, after he left, and made sure he would always live his life wondering if he made the right decision and what she was up to. I really hope his dying thought is about her, and I know for a fact hers won't be about him. She'll find real love. My wife and I were both in the wedding party for a friend of mine. Found out from her the bride was talking to guys on a dating app while she was getting ready the morning of the wedding. Also during the ceremony more than one family member could be heard saying it won't last and what a mistake it was. It wasn't at a wedding, but it was the first time I really sat down to talk to the couple. They came to town about a year after the wedding, and my wife, cousin to the groom, and I met them for drinks at one of the cool parts of Cool City. One of the first topics of conversation was what we knew about the lifestyle scene, a word which in this case means swinger. Afterward, I pointed out to my wife that the bride seemed to have been rather openly and boldly flirting with her. My wife shrugged it off because I'm often pretty terrible at that kind of thing. We met one more time, this time for a funeral. After the ceremony, we were hanging out in a hotel room drinking. The bride again seemed to be pretty openly flirting with my wife, and this time was going out of her way to show off her talent for bedroom knots. Again, the groom is there in the room. I pointed out all of this again, and this time my wife tacitly agreed. The two would divorce soon after. The bride, it seems, only discovered, or accepted, that she was a lesbian after she'd gotten married. That sucks for everyone. At least they're free to be happy now. A girl I used to know was attached to me. I'm no catch, so I refrain from using obsessive or stalker type behavior. However, that's kinda what we're dealing with. I rebuffed her advances, nicely as first, then fairly harshly later. Eventually I cut contact with her for our own good. I was tired of explaining that while I might find her as a person enjoyable, that doesn't mean I want to fuck her or have a relationship with her. From what her friends and family said, I didn't think she'd be able to move on if I was in her life, at least not as quickly as she should have. Years later I re-established contact with a mutual friend, and I eventually asked about her. Turns out she's a lesbian. and was happily living with a woman. Looking back, it makes sense. She only hung out with ladies or super duper effeminate men, which by those standards I'm fucking Rambo and Arnold rolled into one. She wasn't all about me, so much as she was all about denying that part of herself for whatever reasons. Like I said, I'm no catch myself. Looking back now, it all seems so sad. It's a damned shame she felt like she couldn't be who she really is inside. I'm glad now that she's living her truth. The only good part about a breakup is that both people are now free to find someone that'll love them for them.